Hey, what's up guys? John here. Los Angeles just extended the eviction moratorium until December 31st of 2022. Certain areas of Los Angeles, the eviction moratorium is in place until June of 2023. That's pushing over 3 years of an eviction moratorium that's already set in place. That very well likely could be extended again and again and again, as it's been so in the past. The big question we have to ask ourselves is, why is this important? What does this mean? And what does this say about the future of California? Well, what I believe is actually happening here is I believe that the real enemy is inequality. Now, many people would think, oh, they're going to dive to a buzzword. No, inequality in the state of California, their eyes of inequality is one group of people, landlords, having money, property, equity, cash, they have a retirement, they have something. And another group, they do not have something. And so to combat that inequality, this eviction moratorium does just that. It pulls out the cash vector from those landlords, which is the tenant, and then ultimately levels the playing field, putting everyone at one level, combating inequality, right? This is what they are likely doing in Los Angeles and California. The big question is, how far will they go? Is it just going to be this eviction moratorium? And what can property owners, investors, and landlords throughout the country learn about this? Because I believe that this is only just the beginning. California is a gateway state. It's a gateway state. What happens in California flows to New York, flows to Boston, to Philadelphia, starts to flow to these other markets. I think we should all be paying very close attention to this. Take a look at this. Los Angeles eviction moratorium continues for at least a month. Los Angeles City Council voted August 26 to extend another 1 month on one of the longest running pandemic moratoriums on eviction, California. Los Angeles eviction moratorium started in March 2020 and was intended to protect renters from becoming homeless during the economic disruption of the pandemic. Councilmember John Lee, who represents the city's 12th district, was the sole vote against continuing the declaration. At a previous council meeting, he said that the eviction moratorium unfairly penalized landlords month after another governmental bodies, including the state of California, let eviction moratoriums expire. The LA City Council vote came a day after a city report recommended to extend the moratorium at least until the end of the year. A long-anticipated report authored by Los Angeles Housing Department was released on August 25th. The department, which runs the city's affordable housing programs and works on housing development, recommended that the moratorium on rental evictions remain in place until December 31st. The report also recommended that during the last 2 months of 2022, tenants unable to pay rent because of the economic impacts of this will have the eviction protections only if they provide landlords with a notice in the format prescribed by LAHD, Los Angeles Housing Department. Also, the report requests that the city's attorney's office draft a law that would regulate evictions on non-rent stabilized multifamily rental units, as well as rentals with corporate-owned single-family properties and condominiums. Other LAHD recommendations include a stipulation that tenants must repay pandemic rental debt by August 2023. Now, if you look at this and saying to repay rental debt, a lot of people would say, yes, they're going to repay rental debt. A judgment is only as good as one's ability to pay on that judgment. And if the average American has $400 as savings, how will they be able to pay if the average rent is, say, $2,500 in Los Angeles and they're back a year or 2 years without paying rent? How are they going to write a check for $25,000 or $50,000? Why would they write the check if they had the money, if the law is in their favor? In Los Angeles, the law is in the favor of the tenant, and the court systems are going to be extremely backlogged. And for a landlord to actually dispute this and to fight this, they'd have to hire an attorney at $300 to $400 to $500 per hour. It's going to be extremely costly. And then at the end, the net result is that the landlord is likely only going to incur future losses and further losses. And so my belief is that out of all of these tenants, there'll be a very, very small portion of which will really be, on the hook for this rent. It's hypothetical to get this rental payment by August 2023. The report may be discussed in September by Council Housing Committee, an ad hoc committee on this recovery and neighborhood investment, according to City Hall source request for comment, were not returned by LAHD representatives. The report was met with outrage and skepticism by landlord groups such as the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles, executive director of association, said the pandemic restrictions on housing have run on while pandemic rules such as mandatory masking have eased. Dragging out the emergency another 4 months and adding even more stringent and unnecessary tenant protections is another poke in the eye of landlords. This makes no sense other than for the continued pandering to tenant voters at the expense of housing providers. And now owners renting their single-family homes or previously exempt rental properties will be subject to complicated and costly eviction regulations. Traditional eviction in Los Angeles right now, before all of this would have been $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $25,000, depending if there's a jury trial. It's extremely costly. Whereas if you were in Florida, it may be $300 or $500. It's very different, right? There's a completely different level of risk associated with being a landlord in Los Angeles. Ari of AAGLA, director and president of Lotus West Properties, which owns and manages more than 1,000 residential units in Los Angeles, estimated that his company has lost about $50,000 a month since March of 2020 because of the ongoing pandemic rules. This moratorium is never ending. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars that we'll never be able to recover. LA's county government also maintains a long-running parallel pandemic eviction moratorium, which runs until June of 2023. For some lower-income people, it covers unincorporated areas of the county, where it will keep a rent hike freeze through the end of this year. The pandemic has had a big impact on the rental market. There are 33% decrease in active listings in Los Angeles between March of 2020 and March of 2022, said Crystal Chen, a spokesperson for Zumper, a San Fran headquartered rental platform. At the same time, there was an increase in rents in Los Angeles. The average for a one-bedroom apartment cost $2,250. In March of 2020, in August, the price had increased to $2,450, a 9% increase. Chen said that the moratorium may have had an effect on the rental market in Los Angeles. However, the slower pace in building new multifamily housing, which is independent of moratorium, may have also had an impact on the situation. Also, you have landlords that are suffering losses. They're going to increase rents on other units to make up for those losses, right? A 2021 report co-authored by Stuart Gabriel, a director of the UCLA Zinman Center of Real Estate, measured the effects of rental moratorium. It quoted that Moody's Analytics reported that found that up to $70 billion in outstanding rent debt was owed to landlords across the nation by the end of 2020. The first pandemic year, the Moody's report said that the federal government's 2021 American Rescue Plan would cover only a small portion of what was owed to landlords. The UCLA report said that reducing evictions allowed households to redirect scarce funds to other basic needs such as groceries. Big question is, what does this mean, right? If we can put an eviction moratorium on landlords, can they do that with groceries, for example, right? Where does this go? The big question I'm always wondering is, how far will this continue? Will this go to extreme measures? If you were to say that this would be in place 3 years ago for 2 years, would you have believed that story? Would that have sounded crazy? Right now, this is getting more normalized. I do think we're going to start to see landlords really looking at Los Angeles as a place that offers a lot of risk. Property values are extremely high, and landlords have very little rights. And so with that being said, I think we're going to see a real big pullback in the short term as we start to see interest rates rise and affordability continue to worsen. We're going to start to see these mom and pop landlords get financially punished. And as that starts to happen, we're going to start to see greedy corporate investors run out there and start scooping up properties by the thousands. And I think this is only going to make the situation much, much worse, right? The mom and pop landlords that live in Los Angeles that operate these buildings, many of which, they own one duplex or a triplex, they own 1 or 2 properties. It's their retirement plan. When these people lose their properties and they sell to a corporation or they're squeezed out to a corporation, these corporations are going to be treating their tenants much, much worse than the everyday mom and pop landlord. Most landlords, everyday landlords, 76% of properties, multifamily properties, are owned by mom and pop landlords. Over the next couple of years, that's going to greatly change. It's going to greatly change. So I know this story, kind of puts the picture out there that tenants are the ones going through this big suffering, but at the end, it's going to be both groups. They're all going to be one. It's California's way of combating inequality. What do you think about this entire situation? Drop your comments below. Subscribe here. Subscribe also to my second channel. It's going to be an interactive call-in show and a podcast. Film my first one this Thursday. I have 4 guests already confirmed for the next 4 Thursdays. It's It's going to be really cool. Be sure to subscribe down there. It's pinned at the top comment. LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok up in the banner. If you need help fixing your credit, my team of credit repair specialists is absolutely incredible. And cashnow.video. You want to get on the YouTube grind with me? Cashnow.video. You want to learn about real estate investing? Cashnow.video. I'll catch you guys in the next one.